Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the interviewers, all the presenters today for their excellent presentations. I'm going to start off with questions to Mr. Hinton, and then I'll end off with Mr. Strickland. Mr. Hinton, thank you for your very thoughtful presentation. You gave an urgent call to our government around the importance of IP, as well as an urgent call to action that we need to create the rules around the freedom to operate. Just for those who might not understand, what do you mean by the freedom to operate? And if you could just explain it maybe in 1 minute, like 30 seconds or less, and then what would be the top 2 or 3 things we need to do that would actually create that environment of freedom to operate for our businesses?
Yes, thank you. And so, yeah, freedom to operate is really what businesses in the innovation economy have to deal with. And so IP is a negative right. And so patent allows you to prevent others from making, using, or selling. And so really, it's not so much about sort of protecting what you've come up with, sort of protect your invention. That's what IP does. But it also, you're building on the IP positions of other players. And so if the foundation is owned or the land is owned by these big major players, then ultimately your freedom to operate is reduced. And so it's your ability to go out and commercialize your technology, recognizing that most IP, 90% of patents that are granted are improvements over other people's positions. And so because you don't own that underlying position, you don't have the freedom to operate. And so like 99% of the IP is already owned by some other players. You have to manage that IP and reduce the risks that come with it. And so that's your freedom to operate. And it's really the lens that all policy in the innovation economy needs to take. Will this increase the freedom to operate of Canadian companies while also decreasing the freedom to operate of other global players?
So our federal government has made a clear commitment around a national IP strategy. What would be your immediate recommendation that we do that will actually help to create this freedom to operate for businesses here in Canada?
Yeah, so the immediate thing would be to scale the Innovation Asset Collective. And so it's a pilot project. It's in its last year now. And really what we need to do is be with our global peers and have that fully funded. Right now it's data-driven clean tech companies, a very important sector, but it's well underfunded, and we need to expand that across all sectors, and provincial and federal governments need to work together to most effectively sort of not ratchet that up based on the innovation spending. We should be spending significantly more to protect the IP that we generate than we already are, and ensure that benefits economically benefits Canada and Canadian companies.
Okay, so the Innovation Asset Collective, I think you said it was IAC, and I think it's a $30 million pilot, if I recall correctly. So you think we need to scale that up. Would you give us a sum of money that you think would be an appropriate amount of funding in order to scale this up?
Yeah, and so I look to global peers and what are other countries doing? And so the Chinese, the Americans, they really have funded significantly their IP generation capacity. We can't do that. We need to be more shrewd. And so looking to other countries like France, Korea, Japan, what are they doing? Small open economies. And as I mentioned, the French, France Brevet, the French fund, they started with 500 million euros, and they've since gotten another 500 million euros. And so that's a significantly an order of magnitude or two more than what where Canada sits today with its funding. So we really need to be keeping pace with those global peers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hinton. And because I've just run out of time with you, if you could submit some of your key recommendations on how we create this freedom to operate beyond sort of the investment that you have, or the scale up of the $30 million clean tech pilot, I'd be grateful. Then this committee can actually consider your recommendations moving forward.